But there is one thing that curdles my blood. It's lonesome up there, alone in the air in my single-seat thud. I love my thud, and she loves me too. But she soaks up flack like a magnet can do. If I get my 100 and I'm still alive, I'll have no grief. Goodbye, Thunder Chief, my F-105.
Believe what I just saw. It made me drop a slackened jaw. A goal beyond my reach, or so it seemed. An aspiration I had only dreamed. A vision I foresaw when I was a kid. Yes, I did. I'm in fine scale modeler. I gave myself a clapping hand. Now I can die a happy man. After making only the website, I finally got every detail right. When the paint and the glue put up their usual fight, I kept it tight and got in fine scale modeler. And in the workshop light I saw the airbrush pattern start to sprawl. The paint, it was not adhering. The primer, it had been over thin. And the finish must be corrected right away for me to say I got in fine scale modeler. The tools I use are getting old. That better stuff is sold, but I'm building on a budget here. I can't be buying all that fancy gear. Still my work got better over time, and finally I'm featured in fine scale modeler. And the premium I paid for the little kit I made, shipping fees. The online auction brought me to my knees. The email said you won this item, cause you raised your bid just in time. Well, now it's mine, displayed in fine scale modeler. Just bought some kits at a clearance sale, a tank and a Mac flatbed, and started home from the hobby shop back to my tiny shed. Up late last night detailing, man, the nipper's well cared for. 5 hours had passed and I told my babe just a half hour more, a half hour more. The wife had started talking tough, the tiny girl is boss. She insists I acknowledge her point of view. I know now that I've lost, I know now that I've lost. The sheds are filled with a score of kits unfinished for a while. The jolly green dish to cut to, some camel's hair and my knife. The DC-10, there's a Saturn V and Messerschmitt in the unfinished pile. So this is a tale of a model kit unbuilt for a long, long time. I'm gonna have to let it sit, I barely got it primed. I'll first research the color scheme and do my very best to make it concours accurate, an obsession and a quest. Nose cone, strobe lights, tail rotor spar, and getting up at dawn. The sand runs through the hourglass and modeling time is gone. So make some modeling time each day, it's sure to make you smile and finish all your model kits in your unfinished pile.
I'm a thud pilot, I love my plane. It is my body. I am its brain. My Thunder Chief loves me, and I love her too. But I get the creeps with only one seat and one engine too. She's faster than lightning, it says on her dials. To get a thud airborne takes only 2 miles. She's packed with transistors, black boxes, diodes. But stay alert, 'cause you might get hurt when she explodes. She totes more bombs than a B-17. My F-105 has a gun and she's mean. But there is one thing that curdles my blood. It's lonesome up there, alone in the air, in my single-seat thud. I love my thud, and she loves me too. But she soaks up flak like a magnet can do. If I get my 100 and I'm still alive, I'll have no grief. Goodbye, Thunder Chief, my F-105.
I can't believe what I just saw. It made me drop a slackened jaw. A goal beyond my reach, or so it seemed. An aspiration I had only dreamed. A vision I foresaw when I was a kid. Yes, I did. I'm in fine scale modeler. I gave myself a clapping hand. Now I can die a happy man. After making only the website, I finally got every detail right. When the paint and the glue put up their usual fight, I kept it tight and got in fine scale modeler. And in the workshop light I saw the airbrush pattern start to sprawl. The paint, it was not adhering. The primer, it had been over thin. And the finish must be corrected right away for me to say I got in fine scale modeler. The tools I use are getting old. I know that better stuff is sold, but I'm building on a budget here. I can't be buying all that fancy gear. Still my work got better over time, and finally I'm featured in fine scale modeler. And the premium I paid for the little kit I made, it was worth the extra shipping fees. The online auction brought me to my knees. The email said you won this item 'cause you raised your bid just in time. Well, now it's mine, displayed in fine scale modeler.
Just bought some kits at a clearance sale, a tank and a Mac flatbed, and started home from the hobby shop back to my tiny shed. Up late last night detailing, man, the nipper's well cared for. 5 hours had passed and I told my babe just a half hour more. a half hour more. The wife had started talking tough. The tiny girl is boss. She insists I acknowledge her point of view. I know now that I've lost. I know now that I've lost. The sheds are filled with a score of kits unfinished for a while. The jolly green dish to cut you, some camel's hair and my knife. The DC-10, there's a Saturn V and Messerschmitt in the unfinished pile. So this is a tale of a model kit unbuilt for a long, long time. I'm gonna have to let it sit, I barely got it primed. I'll first research the color scheme and do my very best to make it concours accurate, an obsession and a quest. Nose cone, strobe lights, tail rotor spar, and getting up at dawn. The sand runs through the hourglass and modeling time is gone. So make some modeling time each day, it's sure to make you smile. And finish all your model kits in your unfinished pile.
I'm a thud pilot. I love my plane. It is my body. I am its brain. My thunder chief loves me, and I love her too. But I get the creeps with only one seat and one engine too. She's faster than lightning, it says on her dials. To get a thud airborne takes only 2 miles. She's packed with transistors, black boxes, diodes. But stay alert, 'cause you might get hurt when she explodes. She totes more bombs than a B-17. My F-105 has a gun and she's mean. But there is one thing that curdles my blood. It's lonesome up there alone in the air in my single-seat thud. I love my thud, and she loves me too. But she soaks up flak like a magnet can do. If I get my 100 and I'm still alive, I'll have no grief. Goodbye, Thunder Chief, my F-105.
I can't believe what I just saw. It made me drop a slackened jaw. A
There we go. I bet we got sound now. Hit the button, Max. 1, 2, 3. Now, guys, give a 3 check again.
1, 2, 3. 8, 7, 9.
Yes, I literally, actually, Jeff is right. I actually had not flipped the button, so it was muted. And there's also a mute button here. When you grab this thing, you got to be careful not to hit the mute button. Can you imagine
Just
how
thought we were
different?
doing silent film style.
Can you imagine how different Star Trek episodes would have been if the communicators had accidentally had a mute button and Spock or Kirk hit it at the wrong time?
Yeah, there would have been a lot of planets vaporized.
There would have been a lot of crew members vaporized. Heck, there already were. We don't call them red shirts for nothing. Anyway, so a whole bunch.
Weren't the red shirts supposed to be part of like the engineering department?
What's that?
No, that was the sacrifice department, Ken.
Actually, red shirts were engineering, security, and one or two other things. And they even had the sparkly shirt in a few episodes, which they never really said what that was for. But for something I read on a Star Trek trivia site is that Kirk actually wore the green wraparound shirt more than he wore the gold shirt. I don't know if that's true or not, but somebody apparently did the math on that and claimed that was the case. Because they wanted to, separate him from the rest of the crew. So green, I guess, would be command also, or maybe it's a captain's thing, or maybe captains could stylize their uniforms. It's it's Star Trek. It's like, man, when we were writing the show, we had no idea that 50 years later we'd be answering technical questions about it.
Plastic Slave says, "Oh, I don't know. I think a mute button on a communicator must have been a must. Yes, Captain. That would have been a good idea.
Enterprise. Spock here.
I would have thought so.
So anyway, so many
You
great
faded out,
things.
Max.
Huh?
Max, you faded.
I faded?
Yeah, hardly hear you.
You can hardly hear me. I can take care of that. All right, how about now? How do you hear me now?
Who's got the audio from the live stream on?
Hey, one of you got
Oh,
somebody has their audio on their speaker.
How about that?
Okay.
Much better.
Okay, so anywho, well, you know what, guys? The first...
Plastic Slave says, it's true about the shirt because his weight kept fluctuating so much, it was the only one that would routinely fit.
I'm not casting any stones in that particular glass house. Well...
Oh, we should get him a green command shirt. Yes, we should.
We'll just start calling that the Potbelly shirt. Hey,
Max tomorrow, Max.
I can feel the love. Feel the love. Nothing but love.
What should we put on the back?
Where after big meal?
Girl magnet?
Oh man, do not go there. You don't even want to know.
Try and transport this.
You guys don't even want to know the chick magnet story. No, I'm not going to go there. That's one tangent that I'm not going to drive down. I see the road closed on that one. So anyway, so guys, as you may remember from one of my recent videos, we talked about how Steve had a serious issue painting some Revell model cars, and apparently the scuttlebutt floating around is he ain't the only one. So Steve, I'm going to put the pictures up here. It's actually a slideshow, and I'm going to let you describe what happened. And by the way, you just finished these yesterday or today, right?
It's 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, because you had to go to a car show that. So the reason they were so shiny at the car show was the paint was hardly dry. So why don't you tell us, give us the rundown, the 411 on your painting debacle.
Well, I purchased these 2 new, which are actually repots, Revell Duster funny car kits, which were the old original Mongoose and Snake funny cars from Monogram. So I wanted to do them for this model show I was going to today. And I bought some aftermarket decals and took them out of the box and washed the bodies and got ready to paint them. And I painted them both in their respective colors, and they looked great. And after about an hour and a half, the paint just flattened out like it got sucked into a void. It was all spotty and blotchy, and it had patterns in the paint, and I'm like, what the heck is this? So I sanded it down with like 8,000 grit. I primed it. I painted it again. Looked great. About another hour or two later, same thing. Make a long story short, it took about 7 coats of primer and paint and 4 coats of clear to get them to finally look like they should look. So I checked with a few people I knew to see if they had heard of anything like this, and one of them said yes, he did. He'd heard of several people having some kits that they got recently, not the same kits I got, that had the same problem. So the only thing we can figure out is something in either the plastic that was used or the cleanliness of the machine that molded them that put something in there that made the plastic react that way.
So the belief is that there's something in the process at Revell that made these things drink all the gloss.
And all the primer and all the paint, and yeah, it just sucked everything in like it was a sponge.
I wonder if the plastic at the the level you can't see with your eye, I wonder if the plastic is simply too porous.
It's possible, because when you looked at the body and you looked at the other parts of the kit, that had 2 different types of sheen to the plastic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's possible that they used different plastic for the body and different for the other components.
I wouldn't think it was a porous plastic, because after the first coat, you'd think you would have filled in.
Unless the pores were big enough to rough up because it doesn't take that much to rough the finish.
I don't know. I couldn't put a finger on it. Now, I thought the same thing, that once I sealed it in, after the first coat of paint didn't take and primered it, and painted over the primer, that the same thing would happen. Now, the primer was normal when I put it on. But once I put the paint on, it would come in shiny, it would look great, and then it would just flatten right out again.
Yes, Chuck, you did wash the kits.
I did wash the kit.
Mm-hmm.
I used different cans, new cans of the same paint, same color, same manufacturer. But it was, it was quite a challenge. It took a lot of clear.
Well, Trey's asking about grainy plastic, which I kind of put in the same category as a porous plastic. In other words, at a level you can't really pick up with your eye, it's possible that it wasn't really a smooth surface, whether it's pory or grainy. And despite all the primer and everything, it just followed the contour until you smoothed it out, which is a total guess. But I given the way you described it, I'm more inclined to suspect some kind of chemical reaction. There might have been something in that plastic that was leaching out and dulling the paint.
Yeah, it was pretty challenging, because I just was almost to the point of throwing my hands up. But once I got it to the point where the paint was no more pattern, where it had flattened out, where it was kind of uniform, and then I just went to the clear. And it took like 3 coats of clear to finally get it to shine.
I told you, man, you got to get you a vat of floor polish and just do like the old Model Ts and just dip that whole thing and hang it up to dry.
What was that, Ken? I'm sorry.
Chris wants to know what kind of paint you used.
I used Tamiya.
Oh, was it acrylic, enamel, or lacquer?
It was the regular, water-based stuff.
By the way, guys, before we go any further, I just 2 real quick shout-outs. First off, Roy, I hope your eye gets better. Roy just had eye surgery. He can't build for a while. And Lance, happy birthday. But the fact that it's been happening to Revell, and a lot of people are complaining about it, clearly the problem is the styrene they're using, something to do with the styrene. Whether there's something that's leaching out of it, or they've impregnated it with, that's causing a reaction with the paint. But you finally beat it into submission, but that's what you had to do, and you shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it took a lot of work to get it to come out the way it did. But like I said, it was a lot of coats of clear. After I got the paint to stop sort of drying in a pattern, and at least it was uniform color and smooth, then I went to the clear, but it took like 3 coats of clear.
Well, trick... go ahead.
I would put it on. It would go on perfectly clear. It would shine like glass. It would look great. And then it would sort of flatten out again.
Well, if you guys look just...
I did it in a...
Uh-huh.
a warm environment. I did it in a spray booth. It was temperature was about 70 degrees. Not too hot, not too cold. It was dry, not wet, not humid.
Well,
I just cleared it into submission.
if you look just above where my finger's at, you can see my old vintage Aurora C119 flying boxcar. Now, that I had one of the biggest paint disasters of my life with. I had laid, I think I forget what kind of base I'd laid. It might have been an acrylic. And I made the mistake of going over, I believe, with a enamel, and everything bubbled up, and I had to strip the entire model. And fortunately, it came off pretty easily, and I was able to salvage the model. But what I wound up doing was I had laid the primer, then laid the acrylic base coat, then put several clear coats over it of gloss, then put and once I gave that like a couple of days to harden and gas out, then I hit it with the metal, the aluminum enamel, and it took, and then of course I clear coated that. And unfortunately, as it's aged, the paint has actually started cracking. In fact, let me see if I can show you.
Now, the Plastic Slave, no, it's the first. I've used Tamiya for years, never had a problem with the paint. It really wasn't a problem with the paint, because when I laid the paint on, it went on and it shined. So it was definitely something with the plastic.
But you can see where the paint has actually cracked so badly, it's broken through the decal. This is aftermarket black decal sheet, and it's actually caused the decal sheet cracked through the decal sheet. Most of the paint on the airplane is okay. It's just where I put this white on top. By the way, just as a useless point of interest, this is painted up as, including the number, as the C-119 that's on display at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, at the Fort Campbell Museum. They have several Air Force transports and Army Air Corps transports on display because the 101st Airborne used to jump out of these. They consider it part of the divisional history. I went to the trouble to put a navigator whose head is up in the little sextant bubble up there. And, of course, you can't. Now, I think he broke loose, but I'm not going in after him. One of the windows is popped out. It's amazing how much damage a model gets sitting on the shelf. But this is the old vintage Aurora kit. In fact, I hung the box art right. I hung the box right there. That's the box that this came in. And people want $200 or $300 for these old kits on eBay now, and I managed to get those for about $30. And I try to do a good job on it. And this was not long after I'd gotten back into modeling, but it's not a bad job. I mean, it's a Aurora kit, so there's some issues. But I look at it now and I realize some of the seams could have been cleaned up better. But
Lance just made a point about HPI guy having a problem with one of the kids recently. I got to tell you, we have the conversation all the time about the HPI guy. And
how we hate what he does.
What?
How we hate what he does.
No, I cannot fathom that he paints with hardware store paint, lays it on thick as possibly can be, and doesn't get any runs or any drips.
He's got a secret he's not letting on. Maybe it's like 40 degrees in his office.
I don't know, but I mean, he just lathers this stuff on, and you're like, whoa. I mean, you're expecting it to just drip off of the whatever he's painting.
Yeah.
Have you watched him spray it?
Yes, he does it on the air.
Oh,
and you just watch it, and you go, I've done that, and that doesn't happen. It's a mess.
He's got the magic voodoo going for him. But
it's really cold.
Well, I thought that was something we needed to talk about, because if you guys have bought any of the recent Revell kits, we'd be interested in hearing if you had any issues getting the paint to stick to them.
Now, this is being pointed out to Revell, by the way.
Yeah.
So
I don't know where these are popped. Are these popped in China or Poland?
Don't know. That's the problem. And that's part of the conversation that will be had with the appropriate people from Revell is where'd you make it? Because I thought the same thing. My guess is I would guess that more than likely it was made in Poland.
Okay. Darn it, the Russians are putting something in the water to destroy our styrene. It's a commie plot.
Well, you know,
Fluoridation, Mandrake.
that's right. Deny your essence. You know, in Poland, it's a little bit less sanitary in the manufacturing areas than it is in China.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, but my first guess is it's a different type of plastic that they use to shoot the body than they did to do the rest of the kit. Because the rest of the kit, I put paint on it, nothing, no problem.
Mm.
Absolutely perfect.
It seems kind of strange to me that you put on so many coats, yet it still affected it. How this chemical must be
I just had a thought.
Amazing.
You know, they spray the release agent in the mold between each shot, right?
Yep.
And I am totally pulling this from thin air, all right? But I will wager that they put more of the stuff on the mold than the plug, on the cap than the core, okay? Which might be why you could paint the inside without any trouble, but the outside shell, it absorbed more of that stuff and maybe it impregnated the plastic so that washing wasn't good enough.
I don't know. If you can't wash it off,
There's a
with,
problem.
You know, the regular dishwashing liquid and some warm water, there's a big problem.
Yeah.
Because that pretty much takes any release agent off easily.
My advice to people would be wash it, dry it, then clear coat the crap out of it before you even put the primer coat on it to hopefully form a barrier.
Or just buy Atlantis.
Let it dry
There you go.
for a long time.
Yep. Good gosh, we're already only 15 minutes in the show and I've already run out of cough medicine. I knew I should have brought the bottle of cough medicine in here with me.
You know, when you get the new Tarbis up and running, you should just get a cough medicine dispenser.
That's a thought. Oh, well, since you brought that up, you actually give me the perfect segue. Since you brought that up, let me show you guys. They put the first coat of paint inside today. So it is on its way. The big decision that's left right now is what to do with the floor. I think I'm going to go with the 2x1 foot peel and stick, and then throw some of those interlocking rubber mats you talked about on top of that in certain areas. I think that's what I'm going to do. But as you can see, it's coming along. And I'm going to tell you something. The inside I measured. The inside's only 130 inches wide because, as you can tell, you know the 12 by 30 are the outside dimensions. And now that we've got the sheetrock up and everything, it gobbles up about 14 inches of interior space. So it's going to be about 312 square feet. And I'm just going to put a window unit in there temporarily, but AC unit. But
in that picture, there's a light fixture in the middle of the ceiling, hanging.
It has two light fixture. Now there are two light fixtures in the ceiling because this thing came wired. It came electrified. I paid extra to have some extra outlets. One thing I learned is you cannot have too many outlets.
Sure, that's right.
So it came with two outlets. I paid for like 4. One, of course.
Can you put a fan up there?
Oh, I'm gonna. No, the ceiling's too low. But I do have a fan, a horizontal fan a vertical fan that's going in. It's one I've had forever. I used it in the garage. Ken probably remembers it when I just had that when I was painting Kira's car and I just had the fan going. Guys, when I started, and I might have a picture buried somewhere in my computer if I haven't lost it. When I got back into model building, I first started off in the garage in Florida with no AC, and I just had the garage door open and just one of those stand-up upright fans going. That was square fans that you buy for $20. I still have that fan; it still works. Those things never die. Kind of like that one that's on the floor, except it's square. But anyway,
I like SC Super Heavy's comment. Florida lizard magnet.
Oh God, yes. The Anole lizard is a state animal, what we call chameleons, and they are everywhere. Baby Godzillas.
Hey, Max.
What?
William Kretschmeyer says, will the Tarbis feature a couch for those rare nights when your purchases at Hurricane exceed your wife's buying limit?
Do you guys remember the movie Casablanca?
Yes.
Where Louis, one of the greatest lines of the movie is when the guy gives Captain Reno his check, is for the night's drinking. And he just rips it in half, and she goes, "What is that?" He goes, "Rick and I have an arrangement. He hands me a bill, I tear it up. It is most convenient." That's kind of the situation on that. You know, it's like the old Army policy, don't ask, don't tell, you know? But anyway, so the TARDIS is coming along. Hopefully it'll be done by Wednesday, or at least this will be done by Wednesday. I can start getting the floor in, which segues into another point. I am happy to report that I received the official notification in today's email that I am now a fully sworn and qualified Airbus A320, 321 first officer. My training is complete. I'm eligible to bid. I already have a schedule for next month. I do have 3 trips to California planned, actually on my schedule. But the first one I'll probably hopefully hook up with Mike Machat. And one of the places we hope to go is the old Revell factory, because I have a full day off in L.A. And we hope to go to the old...
anymore.
Actually, I don't have a full day off. We get there about 9:30 in the morning. But he'll pick me up. We'll go out to In-N-Out Burger, then hopefully the old Revell factory, and then to the museum. So we have a very full day planned. I have 3 trips over there, so if we don't get it all on the first day, maybe we can, hook up a second time. But this
Steve,
month...
you called it.
What?
Yep, told you.
What?
Yep, you were right.
What?
Told you.
What?
I told Ken, I said the first trip you'd take was going to be to California to be with Mike, go to the museum, and have In-N-Out.
Of course. Was there
Not
ever a
in that
doubt?
order.
I have never had an In-N-Out burger.
You have a vast experience awaiting you, my friend.
Man, I'm hoping this thing lives up to the hype, because even the people at the airline are talking. They post pictures on Facebook every time they go to In-N-Out Burger. I mean, it's like a badge of honor.
Make sure you get it animal style.
Yeah,
Kind of like Buc-ee's.
it's funny you mentioned that, because was it you and I were talking, but somebody posted an animal style like 2 seconds after you mentioned it. So yeah, okay, with the pink sauce. All right, no worries. So I'm gonna plan to do all that, and but this all depends. I got my medical this month, and at my age, that's always an adventure. I got to get that renewed.
Make sure you get out there before the medical.
Well, if something did happen, I'd still have my travel benefits and lots of time on my hands. Let's not think like that. Everything's going to go okay. I'm going to get it renewed, and I want to fly the Airbus. But I have to
Ken,
put.
is this the
I have to
same
put
guy
some.
that during his training was lamenting about how he wasn't sure how this was going to go?
I'm always that way in training. I'm what you call a training neurotic. When you're waiting on a check, I'm one of those guys whose attitude is, there's an old saying in aviation, the flight's not over until the chocks are in. My attitude is, the flight's not over till the chocks are in and you're in your car on the way home.
With an In-N-Out in your hand.
Huh?
With an In-N-Out in your hand.
With an In-N-Out in your hand. When the heck are they going to move out here to the East Coast? But anyway, but I have to build my own schedule for this month to get some hours on to get up to. So I'll be, but there's one trip that I'd like to take. It's a 5-day, and it helped me get towards consolidation. But it gets back in Saturday night, and I'd have to postpone the live stream. Believe it or not, doing this live stream on Saturday night is one of the factors I take into account when I do my bidding. I like to get weekends off so we can do all this, and I'm senior enough to do that. But right now, because I'm entering mid-month, I'm kind of just get to pick the scraps that are left. But you guys are that important.
Tommy Anderson says he wants to meet you at LAX.
Well, I'm going to have 2 more trips there, so we can probably work something out. And Tommy, I think you're SAG and after. He's actually a real actor with a SAG Screen Actors Guild card and everything. I've been in some movies and stuff.
Right next to his name.
Yeah. Well, I've been in some movies and stuff, but I was just an extra, and the extras don't fall under that. If you want to say one word in a SAG movie, Screen Actors Guild Union movie, you have to have a SAG card. And it's one of those catch-22s where you have to have done it to get the card, but you have to have the card to do it. So if you ever want to see a really good movie that pokes a lot of fun very accurately at the clown car circus that is the Hollywood system, watch Mike Yanovich's The Wizard of Space and Time. And it's halfway towards being a semi-docudrama. And he's this special effects guy that decided to make an independent movie, and I mean a genuinely independent movie. he made it in the 70s or 80s. I think he made it in the 80s. And it was one of these things where half the actors and actresses were just volunteering their time because he had such a tight budget. But since he was a special effects guy, he had a lot of the equipment, and he did old school special effects like stop motion and hand drawing in the speed effects and everything. And it's out on YouTube. The Wizard of Space and Time. It's worth a couple hours of your time just to watch it, and it really it's really skewers, but fairly skewers the Hollywood system. But anyway, enough of that. This is guys, in other news, I guess a lot of you learned that Reno is no more. This is the last year for the Reno air races at Reno Stead Airport, or Steed Airport, however they pronounce that. And apparently,
I did not hear that. Why?
Well, the reason is simple. Not only the crashes, they had galloping ghosts splattered and killed some spectators. And, of course, they had the incident with the jet that crashed, I think, last year, killing the pilot. But it's not even that. Air racing, you accept a certain casualty rate. I hate to be so callous about it, but you do. What it really is that Reno has exploded, like a lot of places, the growth. And now they're getting what shuts down most small airports? Complaints from the neighbors. Yep, the expansion of the... And now everybody's complaining about the noise. They got the noise and the crashes and the death and the mayhem. I'm like, dude, that's what most people pay for, But apparently the new settlers are not happy with it. I mean, personally, I'd be out there getting intoxicated off exhaust fumes, But that's us. We're Monday men who like big machines that make lots of noise and pollution, and we could not be more politically incorrect if we tried, and I wear it like a badge of honor.
Meanwhile, Rob just sent you a message and said, when you're out there, try to go to Burbank's House of Hobbies, which is a great hobby store.
Okay, where's my pen? It's somebody text me that. Burbank House of Hobbies. Is Mike here? I didn't see Mike.
Airport.
Okay. Apparently, there's a In-N-Out Burger by LAX, and there's one by Burbank, but a lot of people think the one at Burbank's more nicer. So,
well, the one by LAX is always crowded.
Okay. Well, then we'll go to the one at Burbank. I've only been to LAX, I think, one time in my life to change planes. That's when I came in from New Zealand. And I remember looking at the big arch building that's the kind of their centerpiece. And I was kind of like, yeah, okay, been there, done that. But anyway, the thing I was going to talk about with the Reno Air Racing is that I realized when I was reading the article on that, people don't think about air race models that much, or racer models, but they're actually a very well represented group of kit models. I mean, air racers have been represented pretty well by both the mainstream companies and the kind of offshoot companies. And it wasn't until I started looking around I realized, man, just about every air racer's made by somebody. In fact, Williams Brothers, that's kind of their specialty. That's their raison d'etre. But I was... and it's just kind of sad because air racing is such a... I mean, they say 1 million people show up for the Reno air races, which is impressive. But it's one event held once a year or every other year. And air race pilots were the X-plane pilots of their day because the military had no budget. And post-World War II, they were chopping up fighter planes. And some of the stuff they did, you look lower left at some of these air cobras that they clipped the wings on. You're like, man, how did that thing even get in the air? But
long runway.
Yeah, really.
And a lot of hope.
And but these guys were out experimenting, and frankly, they still do. If those of you who remember the Pond Racer or Tsunami, they really did. I mean, aviation owes a lot to these guys. They didn't call it the golden era for nothing, and I'm glad to see that it's well represented. I have a bunch of air race models here that I can't wait to get to, but all in good time. If you look lower right, you see the Weedle Williams racer. And by the way, I learned it's not Waddell, it's pronounced Weedle. There's a museum in Louisiana to them where they built them. They only built about 4 or 5 of them. but there's Roscoe Turner's Red Lion. And I did mine in Jimmy Weedle's colors, black and white, because it was a simple paint scheme. Unfortunately, the decals for the Red Lion, or Roscoe Turner's Red Lion, they don't include the wraparound cowling decals, and matching colors is nearly impossible. And I'm actually intimidated by that paint scheme, because between the wheel skirts and the cowling and everything, that is a lot more, and the wings and everything, because it's got all that orange trim all the way around everything. You're basically going to use about 10 feet of masking tape to try and tape that thing off. And it's more imposing than it looks like. Then I go to the Crawford Museum, and some local model builder has done this museum quality build on the airplane. I'm like, I am not worthy. Made me feel inadequate.
Which one was that you were talking
about? The bottom
about?
right, right here. I'll zoom in on it. Roscoe Turner's airplane. Let me just expand this. It's the one on the bottom right, the beige one with the cream one with the orange and red with black trim stripes.
Oh,
that's more. Okay. It doesn't, to look at it, it doesn't like much until you start mapping off what you've got to do. Okay, you got to shoot the whole thing in cream. Okay. Then you got to tape all that off and shoot the black. Then you got to tape all that off and shoot the orange, or the other way around, however you want to do it, because all that orange has black trim on it. And it's a more complex paint scheme than it looks like. It's deceptive. And I was like, and the GB is the same way. If you look on the left on that GB, where those red scallops are at and everything, there's also a really thin, dark blue, not black, dark blue pinstripe edge to it, which I've done several times, and I've had to soak it in stripper, and that GB I have on the shelf I did about 3 times, and finally got a halfway decent paint job. It is a lot of guys don't even do it. They just put the red scallops on there, and they don't even put the blue trim because it's just too difficult. Painting pinstripe trim on a car or an airplane is a frickin' nightmare. I think it may be the hardest thing you can do in painting.
It takes patience.
It also takes skill, Ken. Patience and skill, not my superpowers.
That is true.
Wow, you didn't have to agree that quick. I mean, you're right. You just didn't have to agree quite that quick. But anyway.
I know you too well.
Yeah. But anywho, but I'm really glad to see that the race planes get the respect they deserve in the kit model world. That there are plenty of. Oh, sorry guys, that was me. Okay, you know what? Enough of that. I'm just glad to see that the. I meant to maybe fit the screen. I hit invert. Anyway, so what now? We were talking about Mike and going to California. So, that brings us up. And by the way, guys, shameless plug for Celebrating Aviation with Mike Mashat. If you haven't been to his channel, trust me, it's worth a visit. Although I imagine pretty much everybody here is familiar with it. Let's see. Original art. Mike, I believe, has this, the original, this Mort Kunstler, was it Mort Kunstler? Anyway, Aurora paint box art. Now, my brother emailed me when I did the last one because I showed this box art. And he said, make sure to tell them that I have that on my wall. I'm like, yes, I've told them all many times. Now, little story behind this. You see the Eye of Sauron there on the right with that Rockwell symbol staring at you. My brother, like all good model builders back in the 60s and early 70s, cut out his box tops and glued them to the wall of his bedroom. And it's funny. Back in the day, it was just, a teenage kid putting, gluing crap to his wall. But all that box art that he had, all those box tops he cut up, would probably be worth something today. And I'm sure we all have that particular experience under our belt. But that one and the Linwood Spitfire, which my sister-in-law made this t-shirt for me of. Okay.
Mike says he does have the original frame.
Oh, Mike's here. Good.
Yep.
So, yeah, I plan. Hopefully, he'll let me pose for a picture with it because, and leave it to me in his will. Although, with my love of fried foods. But now, we've talked about this box art a couple times on this channel, but I wanted to kind of plug in here for a reason. Now, something happened the other day. In fact, it was after I was coming home from my line check. And that's a story in its own right. Everything went too well. Like, something's gonna happen. You guys want to hear a flying story? Anybody want to hear a flying story?
Love flying stories.
We'll come back to the box art. I'm going to leave it up there. We're going to come back to it. But a flying story first. Okay. My OE kind of went like clockwork. I mean, they were deadheading me up, doing out and back, deadheading me home. So a one-day out and back trip was a 3-day ordeal, and I got really burned out on deadheading. But they have to plug you in when the check airman is available. So I wound up flying with 3 different check airmen. But the last gentleman I had, they're all great guys. Okay, so I had just nothing but good things to say about them. But the last gentleman I had was a 3-day event, actual flying. So great, hooray. We went to Denver. That's when I went to Colpars and did that video there and rode the city bus in Aurora, which I don't recommend. I don't want to sound like a jerk. If I say it was a freak show, I'm not being unfair, but I'm also being a little harsh because a lot of the folks on there were just working stiffs trying to get to work. I mean, I get it. I don't want to sound like some arrogant superior, but my God, some of the folks on there, I thought the circus was in town. But you know what? Nobody bothered me. So anyway, enough about the bus ride. Anyway, so turns out I found out on the 3rd day that the check airman I'm flying with is a Star Trek fan. He finds out I build models. He starts showing me these pictures of these fully lighted Enterprises that a friend of his builds. He goes, this guy spends $350 just on the lighting kits. And I'm like, let me tell you a story. And I start showing him my model. So we got along really well. And everything in the operating experience, and by the way, I learned it was called TOA, Transition Operating Experience, went like clockwork. And the line check is a one and done. Tampa, an airport I know well, to JFK, to another airport I know well. Okay. And we're coming down into New York. And I'm like, it's going too smooth. Something's going to happen. He goes, I learned to fly up here on Long Island. I was like, really? He goes, yeah, those red and white stacks out there, that was our border out of this airport. I said, are you familiar with Zahns Airport? And he goes, it was before my time, but he had heard of it. So I talk about Mike and having him flying back in the day up in New York, and that was another point of interest. And then the hammer drops. Beautiful day, a little gusty down low. It's all going too smoothly. You guys know I never mention the company name, so let's just say Airbus 12345 change runways. By the way, there's a King Air orbiting underneath you. I gotta hold you high. So in my brain, I'm thinking, here comes the slam dunk. They hold us high and give us the closer runway. 3-1 left. And I'm like, I knew something would happen, but hold on. Here's the good point. I point out to him, they're holding us high. We're going to slam. I got the boards out. I got that thing coming, that Airbus coming down for all it's worth. But the 320 only gives you half boards when you're on autopilot. I considered kicking off the autopilot so I could go full boards, but they have a little hockey stick on the display that shows you when you're going to. And I'm like, you know what? We're going to make it. We're going to be okay. Even though they held us high and gave us a closer runway. But, and there's always a but, I never, ever land on 3-1 left. Our entire company operations on the other side of the airport, they always put us on 3-1 right. For the 18 years I've been flying in out of Kennedy, I can count all the times I've landed on 3-1 left with one hand, probably without using my thumb. And I'm like, good on you. I knew something would happen. So, here's what makes 3-1 left a big deal. It's an extremely long runway, but it has a very long displaced threshold. Now, for those who don't know what that means, a displaced threshold means you can use the entire runway for takeoff, but you have to land beyond a certain point. So they have these arrows going up. And it's got like 2,000 feet of arrows. And I don't know why. Maybe somebody important's house is underneath there. But anyway, so you basically are aiming at the middle of the runway instead of the end of the runway, which is what your entire brain is focused on. And mind you, I gave up an airplane with a HUD where you just put the little ring and bead on the number and it took care of itself. Now I'm just looking at this big picture window windshield, and you can't see the nose on the Airbus. So I'm kind of like, so you're kind of in and out on instruments. And I'm letting the automation do its thing until down to about 500 feet. Click, click, and move with the little side stick. And everything's going fine. Till about 200 feet. Now, when a runway is that long, it looks thinner than it is. And I'm not aiming at the end of the runway. I don't have the end of the runway in sight. It's underneath me now. So that throws your depth perception out the window. And it makes you think you are higher than you are. Because the runway looks thinner. And as I'm getting down, I don't realize that I'm slowly easing the nose up at about 50 feet instead of down around 20 feet. And that was the first time in all my landings the captain actually had to say something. He goes, keep the nose down, keep the nose down. So I put the nose back down, and we made a safe landing, but I was like, "Arr!" That could have been so much better. Could have been a hero for a day, but he was like, and we had the usual discussion. Don't worry, it's not a big deal. You passed your check right, everything's fine. Your line check. Just he wanted, but it was a discussion item. And optimally, you want him at the end of the best thing that can happen at the end of the line check is for them to say, I have nothing to say. I mean, that's like the perfect line check, and that never happens. So all in all, everything went fine. But I just knew they were going to throw spitballs at me because what he was impressed with is that I saw early on what was coming, got on top of it, so we didn't end up high. We weren't diving for the runway or anything, trying to get down or having to do a 360 because that crap happens. And so he was like, you understand what's going on. You stayed on top of it, but we want to, cleanup item. I get it. So this is the first half of the story. I went there to go here. So I'd already talked to the captain about Zahns and everything, all this other stuff when we were up high and had room to talk about it. And I'm on the crew van in Orlando now, deadheaded home. Lucky me, the flight that I couldn't catch because it left when we arrived was delayed an hour and a half, so I was able to get on and get home 3 hours earlier. I'm on the crew van in Orlando. The girl sitting across from me was close to my age. And I just came off OE. And somehow I threw out the word Zahns Airport. And this girl had a New York accent. And she just goes, you know of Zahns? And I'm like, she's a flight attendant. And I was like, yeah. Well, apparently she grew up in the area and knew Zahns Airport. And she got so excited that somebody knew of it. Which is why when I got home and did that video, I dedicated it to the memory of Zahns Airport. I was like, It amazed me. Aviation is a small world, guys. Trust me. It's like the car community. It's a small world. And you're going to bump into people who know people who know people who know. It's just amazing how that works. It's like the Great Styrene River. It's like model builders. Oh, I know him. And the joy in her eyes when I mentioned Zahns. And I was like, no, I'd never been to Zahns. But I had seen this artwork that my brother had on his wall when he built the Aurora Era Commander, not knowing that was actually more or less, that could very well be Mike Mashat fueling that airplane. And now I know Mike and everything. It's just amazing how this little world of ours ties together. And at first it comes across as just sort of that's just kind of a neat thing. But you realize, no, it's way more than a neat thing. These are the moments of our lives. These are the things that are important to us. These are our memories. This is our life. And a little airfield like Zahns, or the airport I grew up on, which is the Panhandle of Florida, Quincy Airport. Unlike Zahns, Quincy's still there because it's a municipal airport. Zahns, unfortunately, is no longer around. As some of the airport, I know airport. I was at the Woodbridge Airport in Virginia shortly before it was turned into condominiums. I remember when Tallahassee Commercial was a going concern, and now it's still there, but it's about to get ripped up. And
I'd like to make a technical correction.
Yeah.
If she was as old as you, she's no longer a girl.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'll let you duke that out with her. A lady. But these things, they're important. And the odds that Consular would capture this moment in history, and it would wind up 50, 60 years later being a point of conversation for a small but very privileged group, because I think we are privileged to be part of that. And the reason that this artwork was, of course, the reason it was important to me was, and Mike pointed this out on his channel, there are few pieces of artwork or box art that do a better job of catching the excitement of travel. You know, but when I would look at this box, and mind you, I was 6 years old, but I would look at this box art on my brother's wall, and that Rockwell symbol on the nose of an airplane, you can't help but stare at it. It almost mesmerizes you. That's why I call it the Eye of Sauron. You know, it just mesmerizes you. And later on, when I realized that was the Rockwell symbol, oh, that's what it is. And I don't know. It's just, there are a lot of cheats in this artwork that Mike talks about on his channel, the color palettes and everything. But I mean, you look off to the left, that looks like a 30s or 40s vintage limousine. It's a little, but then again, you know, old money. Maybe it's a Rolls, you know, old money up in New York, and chartering a Aero Commander to probably fly them down to Kennedy so they don't have to put up with the traffic, or God forbid the Long Island Railroad. Before the air conditioning.
No.
But
Somebody sounds like experienced it. I'd rather make Space Mountain in the dark, backwards, tied to the front car than ride on the Long Island Railroad again.
By the way, guys, I just noticed I'm showing 150 watching. That may be a record. But this art does a great job of capturing, you know, the romance and the intrigue. I don't know. I did a top 10 of my favorite top 10 box arts video a long time ago, and that was on there. I forget what number it was, but anyway, and the idea that I might actually get to hold the original piece in my hands at some point, or just gaze upon it, you know, I realize I'm a model nerd, but it's exciting to me. Now, Mike sent me some great pictures of Zahns Airport back in the day, and there's one of the Air Commanders, and there's the actual hangar that you see in this picture, in the background where it says Zahns, and there's the actual hangar. And
some people have been mentioning the Nike sites that were around the area.
Oh, don't get me started on those, Kens. We're going to go down such a rabbit hole if you bring that up. Which you just
had
did.
one not too far from Montgomery, remember?
Yes, I remember. I also remember at one point, mind you, I was single. I saw one for sale, and I think it was in Georgia. I thought about buying it and moving in and building my house underground. I was going to have my cars go up and down on the lifts because the lift still worked.
Thank you, George Gatson.
Oh my God, I had such plans for the Bat Cave. I would have lived in a Nike. Oh, they said one of the lifts still worked, and I was thinking my car won't fit on it, but my motorcycle will. It still had the barracks in the house next to it, and I'm like, man, refurb those bad. But then they pointed out, by the way, you got to pump out the water. I'm like, what? Nobody maintained it in 40 years, so rainwater it was a swimming pool and probably a biosphere. But I was still like, one of them worked. And when you get underground, those 4 launchers, it's one big bay underneath. And I was thinking, oh my God, such ideas floated through my head. And I can tell you right now that Mrs. Max's models would never have married me if I lived in a hole in the ground. But oh my God, it would be cool.
Mike said that that Nike site in New York was there to protect Republic.
I'm sure it was, because they manufactured airplanes. Here is another picture of a mallard, Grumman mallard. This belonged to a news agency, and Mike, I forget which one it was a New York Daily Times or whichever, you have to type in which one it was. That airplane is the airplane that took some of the film footage of the Andrea Doria sinking. And we're going back to the day when newspapers and news agencies had their own air fleets. I remember after World War II, one of the news agencies had a P-51B that was sole job was to fly newsreels from coast to coast. Because, you know, there was no other way to get the stuff there. But think about how cool that is, a news agency that has its own float planes that can go out. And here is a Cub that I believe Mike actually soloed in. That's one of Zahns' airplanes. And, oh, God, General Aviation. I do miss it. I do miss it so. And I don't think I've ever had more fun than flying small airplanes. Airliners are cool, and I love traveling in them, but bug smashers like this. Okay, time for an old story. It's not a joke, it's a story. This guy is flying, he's flight instructing in a Cessna 150. And he sees the guy hauling freight in the Cessna 310. He goes, God, I can't wait until I get a job like that flying a twin. And the guy in the Cessna 310 sees a guy flying a turboprop commuter airliner. He goes, God, I can't wait till I get hired by the airlines and get to fly turbines. And the guy on the turboprop lands in New York, and he sees the 727 taxi by. God, I can't wait till I get hired by an airline and fly jets. And then the guy in the 727's flying along. He sees a Concorde passing up overhead at 60,000 feet. He goes, man, that must be great, flying up at 60,000 feet. And then the captain of the Concorde looks up and sees a space shuttle going overhead. He goes, my God, that must be awesome to be an astronaut to fly the space shuttle. And the mission commander, the pilot of the space shuttle, is looking down at a telescope. One of the mission specialists, hey, Skipper, come here. Look through the telescope down at the Earth. And he looks down and he sees a little Cessna 150 going around a traffic pad. And he goes, didn't you say when you retire you want to go back to flight instructing?
You took that a little further than I thought you were going to.
But you get the joke. You know, grass is always greener, but when you're landing on a grass ship, when you're landing on a grass strip, the grass is definitely green. And
you and I have had a lot of fun in airplanes.
Huh?
I said, you and I have had a lot of fun in airplanes.
Absolutely. Man,
Don't
memories
go
and a
there.
half.
Don't go there.
Yeah.
Flying stories.
Flying
Okay,
stories.
all right.
Were you with me when the bag door opened up on the Cherokee 6?
Remember what?
Were you with me when the bag door opened up on Stan's Cherokee 6?
Yeah.
Ken and I were going into Bader Field, the little airport right by the casinos in Atlantic City. And I throttled back to start the descent, and it has a forward baggage door, and that thing just popped right open and just stayed open until we landed. You know, it didn't do any damage. Nothing came out.
The one in front of the cockpit?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Scared the snot out of both of us. But this is the airplane that they filmed the movie The Spirit of St. Louis with, and that scene with Jimmy Stewart was filmed in the hangar at Zahns. So there you go. Movie star. You know, a little airport that did a little bit of everything. And I think that airplane is still around.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
The field where Lindbergh actually took off.
Roosevelt Field.
Is where now Roosevelt Field Shopping Center is.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
In the 50s and 60s, it used to be an open shopping center. And they had various statues and busts and things of this to indicate that he did take off from there.
Mm-hmm.
It's now a multi-level enclosed indoor high-end mall.
Because people don't understand the concept of a registered historical site anymore.
And there is just a small plaque underneath one of the escalators that if you didn't look for, you'd never know was there. It's actually sad.
That borders on cultural vandalism.
Remember the shopping center there along 355 in Rockville?
Uh-huh.
That was it Congressional? That was built over an airport? And the skating arena, roller skating arena.
Yeah,
used to be
and that restaurant I used to eat at when I lived in Fairfax on Beacon Hill was sitting on top of what used to be the Beacon Hill Airport. And it's just there's a website out there. I think it's Forgotten Airports. It's got all the old VFR charts. It shows all and pictures of all these old airports that are gone now. And you don't appreciate how many airports we used to have. I mean, we used to have thousands upon thousands of airports that are all either farm fields. Right here where I live, just down the road, there's Switzerland and Thunderbolt on opposite sides of the river. Both of them are tree farms now, but one of them's a subdivision, one of them's a tree farm. But when I flight instructed in the 90s down here, they both still had very defined runways, and Switzerland in particular the runways were still usable, but they were bordered by trees. And me and another guy considered trying to buy the property to make a flying community, but it was like hundreds of acres, and you had to buy the whole thing. They weren't parceling it out. But the military built so many outlying fields for training during the war. and during World War II. And every cow
especially
pasture
in
was an
Florida.
airport. So many of them. Different time. But then again, back then, most airplanes could operate out of a 2,000-foot runway without any problem. And any cow pasture could be an airport. That's a different
Sometimes
time.
was.
I mean, I'm glad I grew up when I did. Because when I caught the tail end of general aviation being, for lack of a better word, fun. Low stress. I mean, it was... Now, don't get me wrong. We had a lot of accidents, training stand. I kind of grew up when the FAA was starting to tighten down on that stuff in the 60s and 70s. My dad never... I mean, they didn't have written tests to take a pilot's license until the 70s, I think. I remember Stanley, who owned the Cherokee 6 we were flying, when he took his private ticket, and Stanley wasn't that much older than us. When he took his private ticket, all he did was solo a J3 around the field with the Fed watching from the ground.
Yeah,
he said, take it around the field, pull it up
ground.
into a stall when you get downwind midfield, recover, and then come back in and land. And the guy's like, yeah, good enough. And, getting a private pilot's license is on par with getting a solo certificate.
A wise choice on the instructor's part.
Well, anyway, different times.
My instructor told me that he wouldn't let anybody go solo until they were practically trying to kick him out the door.
Also,
on the ground.
Fort Lauderdale and a lot of the West Palm and all these others were old Navy training bases. In fact, George Bush Sr. trained at Lauderdale as a torpedo pilot. And that's one of the reasons that a lot of these towns got built up over time was when the war was over, a lot of people had trained at these fields. And that was a nice place back in, Fort Lauderdale or West Palm. And after the war, they moved down there. It kind of helped spring them into growth. I found something on by accident on YouTube, kind of shifting gears here, but it's still World War II. Supposedly, this is an actual World War II wooden ID model, although it looks awfully detailed for that. But as I understand it, this is supposed to be a real one of those identification models, or something like that. But look how much they want for it: $2,300. And they've... I mean, don't get me wrong, I love my history, but there's no way paying $2,000 for what may or may not be a legitimate World War II ID model, but most of them are carved out of solid wood. This one seems to have a blown canopy. And it kind of got my curiosity going about what's the story on this. Then again, it says original Imperial Japanese World War II Yokosuka Oka Kamikaze attack aircraft wooden training model. And I was thinking, maybe that's not an ID model. Maybe that's a Japanese-built model for training their pilots. I don't know. They didn't really give me any information on it. And if anybody knows about that, I'd be interested to hear, because that did kind of pique my curiosity. Not that I'm dropping $2,300 on it. I got bills to pay like everybody else, but that's a pretty intriguing little thing.
Does it say Tamaya on the bottom?
Better not.
Are there other pictures?
That was it. You're looking at the whole thing right there. That was all there was. This guy sells military antiques, and I'm like, you really need to flesh that out a little bit when you're asking that kind of money. Somebody may know what it is.
This must be the guy from The Man in the High Castle.
Is this a glider?
It's like a buzz bomb.
What propelled this thing, man?
It actually had rocket engine in the tail. They would drop it from a heavy bomber. He'd light off the rockets like I think they were solid fueled rockets. That might have been liquid fuel, and then he would try to fly. The nose is a torpedo, and he'd try to fly into a ship. Usually they got shot down before they even get to the battlefield because there were so many American fighters roaming all over the place. I'm not familiar with any of them actually successfully hitting their targets, and the pilots are very poorly trained. But I don't know of any successful missions with them. Yeah, it's called the Cherry Blossom. That's correct. That's the American. They call it the Oka. We call it Cherry Blossom. But some of them were captured after the war, and it was a suicide. It was a cruise missile with the human as a guidance system. And,
you ever see the Curb Your Enthusiasm episode with Larry David, and he goes to his his uncle's nursing home to play bingo, and he gets introduced to this Japanese guy, and the guy says, "Oh, this is my father or my grandfather, and he came over during the war from Japan." And he goes, "And what did he do in Japan?" He goes, "He was a kamikaze pilot."
Yeah.
And Larry looks at him and says, "Kamikaze pilot?" He says, and he's alive. He must have been good as a kamikaze pilot.
Or not good.
Yes.
I do know someone personally who was tried to get drafted for that. Herr Herner. We knew him in the 70s. He was a German emigre who had been in the Hitler Youth against his will. His father was a general in the Luftwaffe who lost a leg in the crash of a Ju-88 when an engine quit on takeoff. But anyway, towards the end of the war, when they were, trying their V1, their various suicide, what do they call them, Sonderkommando programs, they tried to recruit some kids from us. He was in flying school. I mean, like primary flight. They were trying to recruit some kids. He got one or two of the idiots to volunteer, filling their head with that propaganda. But apparently the SS men who were doing it sat him down in a chair. I was like, your father's a general. You should be setting an example. You should be the first one to volunteer. And his response was, leave that suicide crap for the Japanese. And he happily went through the war without firing a single shot in anger or flying an airplane. When the war was over, he immigrated to the U.S.
Somebody said no audio.
Uh-oh.
Check your button.
No, everything's working here. And I'm showing it's registering fine. Uh-oh.
Okay.
Only Yoda 5.
Ah, crap. Okay, hold on. Let's see what happened. Okay. I'm going to... Chris?
Yeah, okay. All right, he says thank you.
Okay. It must have... I don't know. The intraweb. Crap happens. So, guys, I'm going to take a quick break and refill on my cough medicine. I'm completely out. Do you guys want to entertain them, or do you want me to run the intro while I disappear?
Run the intro.
The microphone's still hot. You want me to kill the mic?
I can't believe what I just saw. It made me drop a slackened jaw. A goal beyond my reach, or so it seemed. An aspiration I had only dreamed. A vision I foresaw when I was a kid. Yes, I did. I'm in fine scale modeler. I gave myself a clapping hand. Now I can die a happy man. After making only the website, I finally got every detail right. When the paint and the glue put up their usual fight, I kept it tight and got in fine scale modeler. And in the workshop light I saw the airbrush pattern start to sprawl. The paint, it was not adhering. The primer, it had been over thin. And the finish must be corrected right away for me to say I got in fine scale modeler. The tools I use are getting old. I know that better stuff is sold, but I'm building on a budget here. I can't be buying all that fancy gear. Still my work got better over time. Finally I'm featured in fine scale modeler. And the premium I paid for the little kit I made, it was worth the extra shipping fees. The online auction brought me to my knees. The email said you won this item because you raised your bid just in time. Well, now it's mine, displayed in fine scale modeler. Just bought some kits at a clearance sale, a tank and a Mac flatbed
and started home from the hobby shop back to my tiny shed. Up late last night detailing, man, the nipper's well cared for. 5 hours had passed and I told my babe just a half hour more, a half hour more. The wife had started talking tough, the tiny girl is boss. She insists I acknowledge her point of view. I know now that I've lost, I know now that I've lost. The sheds are filled with a score of kits unfinished for a while. The jolly green dish to cut you some camel.
Okay.
Okay, guys, we are back. Check. Oh, and I have more cough medicine. So, the next thing I thought I would talk about, and, you know, Steve, you and I were talking about IMC models recently, and that is the battle damage kits. I built a few of these when I was a kid. I know you weren't, I don't know if you were into model airplanes or not at all, but IMC had this series of pre-damaged models. Because, you know, like you do.
Because you couldn't damage themselves.
Well, Ken, that brings up the very point I was going to make. We always considered it an art form to be able to damage your own model, and our number one thing was to heat up a needle with a match and then poke it in the plastic and make a bullet hole. And then you put a string of them down the side of the airplane.
Wait. Run that by me again to heat up a needle? Is that what you said?
We would take one of my mom's sewing needles, and we would heat it up with a match, and then poke it in the side of the plastic to make a bullet hole.
Oh, I thought you said an eel. That's what it sounded like.
Needle.
Okay. They just sold a bunch of these kits at Ollie's last year.
Oh, yeah? Oh, they're back in production? Frankly, I don't know if an F-105 would stay in the air with that much wing gone, but and I think I'd be punching off that damaged tank, but...
John Ashley Smith just said the same thing, that he used to do it with the same way you did, with heated pins.
Yep. The Sky Raider had battle damage on the side. The Skyhawk, I was like, I don't think that Skyhawk stay in the air with that hole in it. You know, they lost a lot of the early Skyhawks because they only had one hydraulic system. And when they would get hit, all you had to do was take out that, pop one of those lines. There weren't any check valves in it, I guess. And the guy had to eject, and you had yourself a POW. But a later model, for other reasons, they put a second hydraulic system in, and the loss rate went down substantially. So that became a standard in the military. And it's kind of like, you think they'd have thought about a combat aircraft having two hydraulic systems just as a matter of course. And now every airplane has three of them.
This one place that I did some programming work for many years ago, this particular department tracked all military aviation ejections.
I remember when you were talking about that, yeah.
Yeah, fascinating database. And the guy who was in charge of the department was also equally very interesting. But what he told me was kind of interesting in that during the Vietnam War, they did battle damage analysis of the airplanes, and they discovered that there was never airplanes that came back never had any battle damage in certain areas, and from that they deduced that if they did have damage in that area, the plane didn't come back. Mm-hmm. So from that, they were able to reorganize some of the systems inside the airplane so that it would be less likely to not come back.
It's funny, Ken. There's a video I saw about 6 months ago about what you might call technical survivor's bias. This has happened during World War II, and it caused a huge misunderstanding about battle damage. The Army Air Forces were looking at all the B-17s that returned and where they were hit, and they realized that there were certain areas where the airplane was hit that had obviously a bigger effect than others, and where the rounds went, and they were talking about, oh, this is where, most of the damage occurs, this is what we have to reintroduce armor into, this is where we need to do this. But, and the same thing happened with tanks, I might add, also. The problem was they were getting all their data from aircraft that came back.
Right.
They had no data on the aircraft that were lost. and it actually caused them to consider armoring and reinforcing and rearranging the Zahns in areas that it actually didn't matter because the airplanes came back.
Exactly the same point that
And they had the same problem with the tank, so we need to armor this and armor that. Wait a minute. That tank came back. Let's look at the one that didn't. And
they also had, because of the database and the data that they tracked, ejections out of military aircraft, they also discovered that a certain model ejection seat in a specific aircraft, the ejection was always fatal.
Yeah, like the early F-104, if you ejected low, you were going down.
No, that's not even ejecting out the bottom of the plane. This was just shooting up.
Yeah.
Okay, just like it's God intended.
The early F-102 and F-106 ejection seats had a high failure rate, and I forget it was the
this
reader
one wasn't
seat.
high. This one was always.
Yeah, no, I understand. Now I remember that was a thing, and one of the things is that aircraft operate in different regimes. Some aircraft like the A7 and I think the OV-10 Bronco that operate at low altitude, they realized when they designed the airplane that if the pilot ejected, he was already dirt low and had to get out in a hurry. So he didn't really, or she didn't really have time for a canopy to blow and all the sequence. Those are the ones with the det cord overhead. When they fired the ejection seat, that det cord shattered the plexiglass and the seat just went through it because it was a faster ejection, which is, I think, one of the reasons that the A7 has such a wide cockpit. Small jets like the A4 Skyhawk, you had to blow the canopy because the cockpit was too bloody tight as it was. I mean, look what happened to McCain. And I met him. I flew him for 3 days. McCain was not a big guy. And as tiny as he was, or it was as svelte, whatever you want to say, he still broke both arms, and guys are banging. That Argentine pilot that ejected in the Falklands, they shot down, tore his knee off or dislocated it, and because the A4 has such a tiny cockpit. I sat in one, and good.
How did you get into an A4 cockpit?
It was a A4 simulator I think it was at the museum in San Jose, California, the Hiller Museum. They had the A4 simulator, and I sat in it, and I'm telling you, I couldn't close the canopy. Never mind with a helmet. I knew a guy, Mike Reisinger, who flew them, and he was about 5'6", and he said they had a commander that was 6 or 6'1". He was technically too big for the airplane, and he goes, he was always just squished in the cockpit, and it was just that the cockpit was an after. The airplane is an Ed Heinemann design, and I believe it had a 28-foot wingspan. It was designed where they could pass each other inside an Essex class hangar without having to have folding wings, if I remember correctly. And Ed Heinemann, of course, designed such great airplanes, if I'm not mistaken, as the SBD Dauntless and some others. The man was he was to the Navy what Clarence Kelly Johnson was to Air Force designs, and a true genius aircraft designer. And the A4 Skyhawk is one of the most, it and the F5 Tiger, two of the most clever little jets ever made. But
Chuck says you wore the A4.
Yeah. But these things,
kind of like what John Glenn said about the Mercury capsule. It says you don't get in it, you put it on.
Yeah, absolutely. But you have to understand that everything's as I'm sure everybody watching this is aware. Everything in boats, cars, and aviation is a compromise. Okay, I could say boats, cars, aviation, and armor. Everything's a compromise. And if you want to have that nimble little jet, you got to give something up. And one of the things you give up is storage space for the pilot. And but you wind up with this very clever little airplane that's very low maintenance, incredibly dependable, pretty capable, and just a neat little airplane. Great for a second or third world Air Force. Same for the F5.
Holy cow. Mike Machad just said A4 wingspan was 26.7 feet, smaller than the stabilizers on an F-14.
Well, okay, here's your kit bash. An F-14 with a couple of A4s on the hard points.
And the same scale.
There was an old episode, God, back in the 80s, I guess, 70s. Somebody in our family was getting Air Force magazine, and I remember opening it up, and it was the F-16. It was a bunch of cartoons about F-16 pilots and F-15 pilots picking on each other. And the F-16 pilots are calling the F-15s like pterodactyls or something because they're so big. And it shows an F-15 with an F-16 on each hard point, and how the F-15 pilots pick on the F-16 for their diminutive little little airplanes. But he literally had F-16s on his hard points. But you have to remember, all of this was done for a reason. And he had a wingspan of 26 feet 7 inches, or 26.7 feet, on a jet that was going to operate off of a carrier. Look at a lot of things they did to save weight. For example, I had a free castering nose wheel. You didn't have a steerable nose wheel. You steered with the brakes. But that got rid of an unnecessary weight and an unnecessary system. As long as you don't taxi it off the carrier deck. But you look at the A4 coming, those little stick-like gears and everything. The airplane, everything on it, the shape of that quasi-delta wing, everything on that airplane was simple and functional. And there was no gold plating on it. The F-14 was full of gold plating, but it was a big, expensive project from Grumman. Massive radar, long-range missiles, backseater, 2 engines, all this grand stuff. And you needed that to do the mission that we're going to do. The Phantom, the same way. 2 big engines, very fast, backseater, huge radar, basically a radar with an airplane wrapped around it. But that was the mission. But the A4, the Navy says we need something quick, cheap, dirty, they can do all these little jobs. And the design, I honestly believe that sometimes making a simple airplane requires more genius than making a big complex airplane. And in the case of the F5 and the A4, those are, and to a lesser extent the F-16, those are really good examples of that. Or so goes my theory. Now, off to the next subject for the day. I, just before we did this, watched an episode of a wonderful, I think mid-70s or mid-80s, I think it was a mid-70s, British TV show called Warship, which took place on a Leander-class frigate. And if there's anybody here from the UK, I'm sure you're familiar, or not, I'm sure you're familiar with the series Warship. And I have always found that an excellent television show. It ran for about 4 seasons, and the Royal Navy helped them with it. Because unlike a lot of TV shows, it didn't deal with the melodramatic. It dealt with the kind of missions that these ships do, and it kind of showed the real honest-to-God life on board one. Leander class is kind of your standard British frigate, pair of 4.5-inch guns, some missiles, torpedoes, it was a warship, just like the name of the show. Have you guys ever seen it, Warship?
No. Nope.
You might enjoy just watching an episode. It's a 1-hour show, like 49 minutes or something. But the Navy helped them, so it's largely filmed on board the ship. I'm sure they had plenty of sets and everything, but a lot of it's filmed on board the ship and a lot of stock footage. But it's just it was just a generally interesting show. And I got curious, what kind of ship are they using? I looked at it. Oh, it's a Leander class, and designed in late 60s, built in the early 70s, and served through to the 90s. I think some of them might have even been used in the Falklands War. But just, one of the working ships. And I watched the movie Greyhound recently with Tom Hanks. I finally got to see the whole thing beginning to end, not just YouTube clips. I'm sure most of you guys have probably seen Greyhound. If you haven't, I think you'll enjoy it. I think they filmed that aboard the USS Kidd. So it was actually filmed on board the only World War II configuration, one of only 2 World War II configuration destroyers out there. But adds a certain feel of realism. The only thing about the movie Greyhound I didn't like was there was one thing that was total BS, and that was where somehow the German sub-commander managed to hack their PA system and make haunting threats to the crew over the PA. This is not a computer. You can't hack it like my PC. That does not work the way... I do not think that works the way you think that works. But, yeah. But I've noticed, we really don't talk about kit model ships that much on this channel because shipbuilding is kind of a subspecialty. And Bruce, the Mystic Modeler Ships, has made some really great ones. And but he's gotten into cars and airplanes a lot lately and doing some fantastic builds. He's actually submitted stuff for the muscle car build already. But I just thought after watching that episode, that might be something to talk about. I'm glad they make kits of it. But I have the HMS Amazon up on the shelf, and it's a little Airfix kit. And Airfix makes some really nice little ship models. But the Royal Navy, Britain being an island nation, the Royal Navy, a lot of people consider their Navy their primary service. And I was like, you know what? We need to show a little love for some of that, because these are kind of the forgotten, inglamorous ships that people forget about, but they really are. The destroyers and frigates are the bulk of most navies. Oh, the Bedford incident, yeah. I remember that movie with Richard Widmark, and man, that was a Cold War thriller and a half. I know some folks are like, I don't like that movie, blah, blah, blah. I was thinking, I don't know, man. It's pretty creepy. I can see something like that happening. Some idiot ensign makes a mistake, and the next thing you know...
Too.
Hmm?
The Enemy Below was a good movie.
Oh, that's like the greatest submarine movie ever. Come on.
I remember
Kurt Jurgens and Robert Mitchum and Kurt Jurgens, and even a young Doug McClure. And what's the one scene in that movie everyone remembers?
When he rams it at the end.
Nope. When the Germans start singing, to you, my friend, and you, my friend, da 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 together, da 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 da. You can go on YouTube. There's like 100 copies of that video out there.
I thought that was The Sound of Music.
I think it's Desser Alta or something's the name of it. I don't speak German, although I should, but I don't because I'm lazy. My father spoke German. My grandfather was German. You'd think I'd speak more than I do, but I don't.
There was another TV series called The Ship. That was a more modern ship.
Yeah, that's supposed to be like a post-apocalyptic zombie apocalypse kind of thing or something.
The Last Ship. There you go.
That was a good. Show. Do you know where they filmed all the interiors on that ship?
Mm-mm.
No, where?
At the Iowa, out in Long Beach.
Oh. Wait a minute. Oh, okay. Why not?
So it wasn't anything like the interior of the real one.
No.
Well, guys, I posted this picture earlier, and I thought the same thing. This is a backpack cat carrier, and I thought the same thing. I got this picture from a bunch of people. Yes, it looks like Lazarus Ship from Star Trek. That was the first thing to pop into my head, and I made the comment. There's no, we try to put him in. There's no way we're getting her in there alive. I was referring to us being alive, and here is the actual unit right here, and I don't think there's no way we're getting our cat in there. She would either kill us in the I mean, maybe if we doped her up or something, if we darted her, but there's just no way. Honey would be kind of big for this anyway. But I mean, come on, this just begs to be turned into a sci-fi vessel. I mean.
And it's a backpack too.
Can't quite reach far enough to do a forced perspective here thing, but
cats in space.
Cats in space.
Put the Atlantis amoeba bottle in there and drop it someplace like in a park.
Come on, you can see this flying across the parking lot.
That's hilarious.
Come down from it.
Who bought that?
I guess Mrs. Max's Models picked it up. I really don't know, but I was like, ha! That moment I saw that, I was like, is this for me to be kit bashed? Because that was born to be kit bashed.
Good luck getting your cat in that. Yeah.
You're supposed to wear it on your back.
How are you going to keep your cat in there while you zip it up? No way.
You'd have to drop it first.
Your hands will be shredded.
You try to shove honey in there, you're going to have sliced human.
Uh-huh.
But that was hilarious. But, I mean, come on, man. I mean, you can't not make that connection. I mean,
you might get one of those little toy dogs in there.
Now, guys, I had to email Tom Daniel, TD, because I don't think he got back to me on it, because I saw something that I had to get his opinion on. And I'm just looking real quick to see. No, I don't have anything from him. Ooh. Daryl made a new song. I have to go listen to that. The Dreamberry 2. Oh, let's see what's this. I just noticed that, okay, I probably shouldn't try to do this live, but...
What are you trying to do?
Listen to the song that he made.
Now?
I'll
You
get
did
to it
that
later.
during the break.
Well, I didn't know he sent me one, and I didn't get here before the show. Anyway, okay. Quit screwing around, Max. Okay, now, guys, we got to get serious here for a second. I had to ask TD his opinion of this. 1984, the Barbie Vet. Yes. Monogram released, the Barbie Vet.
This is serious?
It'll pop up on your screen in a few seconds. We're talking on the phone. You're a little ahead of the lead, but oh yes, this is absolutely. I even found a commercial for the Barbie Corvette Barbie doll car. And by the way, the back window opened up like a hatchback on that. Why didn't they do that on the real Vet? That would have been a handy thing because there's like no storage space in a Vet. But you see it now, Ken?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
All right, guys. I'm not even going to comment on this. I want to see what you have to say. I basically asked TD, is this a cool idea or is it an aberration? What do you think? And I haven't heard back from him yet.
All you're missing is Paris Hilton saying it's hot.
Oh my God, you stole the words out of my mouth. That's what I got. It's so hot. So let's hear it, guys. What do you think? The
Which one is it?
Barbette.
Just the bottom one? I like it. Shotgun target.
Since Barbie Vet contracts into Barbette, I'll never be able to look at the Barbette guns on an airplane again without thinking about Barbie Vet.
I thought Barbie's Vet was like the top one. No.
The bottom, Ken. The pink one that says Barbie.
Yeah, I got that. I can read, but I thought I remember seeing a Vet like the one at the top also for Barbie.
You do not want me to play the old TV commercial. It's out on YouTube.
What'd you say, Steve? Chuck says worse than the Lionel gift set for girls. They were talking about that at the train museum today.
Okay, real quick. Plastic Slave, don't say, in my humble opinion, it's an abomination. Just say, it's an abomination! Come on, people, say it like you mean it. Okay, Ray's got it. That's just wrong. Oh, that's not right. Now the comments are rolling. I got to change glasses to read the comments.
Yeah, that's the problem with this. Once you see it, you can't get it out of your head.
A thing seen cannot be unseen. Get girls into modeling. You know.
No, it's lack of marketing, Yoda.
Okay, I have to comment on it because I knew someone would ask this question, and it is a good question. I'm not mocking you asking. In fact, I had the same thought. Was this an attempt to get girls into modeling? If it was, I believe it had to be the most ill-conceived attempt. Because I personally think that this was, and I have no idea how many they sold, and I don't think it was too many. I think this was a bad idea for the following reason, okay? Girls aren't going to start building... What are you snickering at?
Nobody would steal it. No gun rack.
No, here's why I think it's a bad idea. One, girls aren't going to build model cars because you paint them pink and call them Barbie cars, okay? That's just not something they're... Now... I say this in a gross generality because we have some girls that build models here and do some really fantastic cars. So I want to, not wedge my foot in my mouth to the point it requires a surgeon to remove it. But I don't think that's going to get girls at large into building model cars. Secondly, I don't think guys are going to buy it for reasons that I don't think I need to extemporate on.
It's pink.
I think what happened was 84
Yoda hit it on the head.
model sales are dwindling. They're desperate. Company Deja Vu has already bought Revell. Monogram is trying to hang on. They're probably still owned by them. They may have gotten rid of Mattel at this point. They may still be under them. They're just like, look, we've got this mold. It cost us next to nothing to shoot some pink plastic in there and just try to sell a few thousand extra kits.
Nope. Yoda 5 hit it on the head.
What?
Mattel owned Monogram, so it's a low-cost, no-license crossover.
Well, that's what I mean. Exactly. It's Barbie. It doesn't cost any extra money. We've already got the molds. We shoot it in pink. We'll sell an extra 15,000 kits. You know, it's just... And don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking them. They're a business. Their job is to move the styrene. Okay? So, it was just that simple. They probably fizzled. They couldn't get rid of them. Fine. It was a shot in the dark. It didn't cost us much. Low risk. That's my read on it. What say you, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's probably worth a fortune today because I bet they sold none.
Okay, somebody run out on eBay, see if you can find a Barbie vet. I'll bet they're asking at least $90 for it. And
they also made
Girls in Vet Panzer.
RV.
Yes, Trey! Girls in Vet Panzer. That's what the Girls Auto Club would be rebuilding on board the Uri ship. Oh my God, I can't believe I know that! Ah!
Yeah, okay.
How
They also
far
had a
I
pink
have
RV,
descended.
too.
What?
They also made a pink RV. Recreational vehicle.
Well, the Barbie vet, short bus. Here, Rob Altus, Charlie's Angels van. Now, the Charlie's Angels van I put in a very different category because it's Charlie's Angels, right? You're talking about any Hollywood car will sell. Although the Charlie's Angels van, I think, was a complete kit model creation. I don't ever remember seeing it on the show. Do you?
Yeah, it was. It wasn't anything that was on the show.
Okay. So we're talking about, and don't get me wrong, I know I poke fun at them, but I'm an executive at a kit model company in the age when kit models are floundering, sales are dropping off. I'm doing anything I can to move the styrene. I can't blame these guys for, look, we got these molds, let's just slap some new key decals and these labels on them to try and move some product. You can't fault these guys for this. You really can't. But I think they were thinking in the wrong way because and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong on this because I know you knew some of these people, but a lot of these executives weren't really car people or even model people. And
Not at all.
And you could have done a lot better by just simply repopping Mongoose and Snake and stuff that,
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, the problem was when Mattel bought Monogram, they had no understanding of the kit business.
Well,
None.
that's because they were a toy business and monograms
Right.
are that's a hobby. And
Right.
toys and hobbies are not the same thing.
No, and what sells as a Hot Wheel car doesn't sell as a model kit. For different reasons.
Paul Adams said, as far as I know, the pink version was not released. Only the silver vet version. Hot Wheels, also Mattel, have done several Barbie die-casts.
Especially in the last year.
Well, do we know if this Barbie car ever actually made the shelves? I mean, this
Never
is the
seen
catalog.
one. And there's not any on eBay.
Paul may be right. It may be the thing that it may have been it fizzled on the vine, and they may never have actually sold the thing. I mean,
Well, they probably got a real bad response to it because they printed the catalog before the hobby show, and then they showed it at the show, and people probably said, "Are you out of your mind?" And they never made it, which happens a lot.
yeah. I've
Phaser
never seen
1X
one.
says the silver. You can get a silver Barbie vet on eBay for $29, but no pink ones.
But what good is that if it isn't pink, Ken?
It's
I don't know. I'm
amazing.
just reading
Can
the
you-
comments.
It's amazing the difference in value that it makes given the color of the styrene. And the late great Andy Anchus had a pink Sikorsky Sky Crane, the military helicopter. And he sent me a picture of all the parts laid out. And I was like, Andy, you have some explaining to do. And this is how it went. They had made the mold. They wanted to do test shots.
It was a test shot. They used whatever plastic they had around.
Aurora had bought a bunch of weird pink and green and blue colors for stuff for girls that didn't sell. So they were stuck with all this weird colored plastic. And you know that a guy like Abe Shikes was not going to throw that away. He had invested in it, so they were going to use it. So they used it for the test shots. They threw it away. Andy picked it up out of the trash.
Well, they probably had the weird colored plastic from the model monster kits.
And this is why you got so many Aurora kits in weird colors, by the way. I offered Andy $300. I think I said, "Hey, Andy, I'll give you $300 for it." And his response was, "I'm sure you would."
Did he say put a zero on the end of that?
Nah. But I was just, I pulled that. He knew I was sort of halfway joking. I mean, I don't think I'd have spent $300 on it, but I don't know if he'd said yes. I probably would have bought it just because I said I would. But
were you having adult beverages when you made that call to him?
No, that was actually in the morning having coffee. And
all right.
Andy, heck, man, the guy's
Did they make neon kits?
Yes, in fact, since you brought that up, Ken.
Well, actually, Yoda 5 did. I'm going to give him credit.
Okay, Yoda 5, this is for you. When I did the thing on AMT and the Star Trek stuff, I got it wasn't an email, I think it was in the comment stream. Somebody who worked at AMT. AMT was the Star Trek kits that kind of run their course and sales were floundering. They were looking for a way to reinvigorate them, so somebody got the idea, what if we shoot them in glow in the dark? So they shot like 3 of them. They decided not to go with it because it was too expensive. They threw them away. He got them out of the trash. To this day, that guy has a never sold, complete glow in the dark, unbuilt, still on the tree, USS Enterprise. I offered him several $100s for it, and his response was more or less along the lines of it's missing what you said, it's missing a 0. He knows.
Okay, that was the one. Okay.
And I joked about it with him. He goes, "Yeah, that's going to put my kids through college." You know, guys.
Go
ahead.
A lot of stuff makes its way into the hands of employees as a failed test marketing shot.
Absolutely. They say throw this in the regrind bin and it goes in their lunchbox.
I mean, at Mattel, when they first came out with Hot Wheels, and for the first couple of years, every year at Toy Show, they would have on display handmade resin Hot Wheel cars. And then as they went into production, they'd replace them in the showroom. Those cars would get put in a box in the back, in the lockup room, and they'd all disappear.
Because the lockup room wasn't terribly secure.
Well, I had the key to the lockup room, so yes, they did.
Steve, if you ever end up in a coma, I'm going to swing over by your house real quick and, tidy the place up a little bit.
And my kid will be glad to open the door and say, "Here, take what you want."
And I will. And they did, and I did.
As he stands at the top of the stairs.
And says, "All this will go on eBay when you're dead."
Well, I think you should give it to me now to avoid that from happening.
Yeah, I wouldn't want you to trip over anything coming over to get it.
cable got snagged in the corner of the chair, and it just, when I turned the chair, it just plucked it out. Hold on, let me put the cable up. I got this there. Now I can't grab it.
Now you
All
know
right.
what to get him for Christmas. Cable organizer.
No, I've got one glued to the desk. I had to stretch the cable over. It was dangling down. It caught the arm of the chair, and out she went. Like a ripcord. No, but what I was saying is, I think we really were, in many ways, just the luckiest of generations that, like I say, I played a few games like Flight Simulator and the air combat games. Those are the flying games. But I never got into a lot of the gaming that a lot of kids do. And I'm not knocking gaming. I understand it. I get it. But when you build models, you're creating a thing. I mean, you've got something tactile that you can hold on to, and your imagination flies. And it's a model building is a magnificent cross section of art and imagination. And what are you snickering at? Every time you snicker, Ken, I'm like, what did they say? What did they say?
William Kretschmeyer says, Max.
That's what they said.
Well, William Kretschmeyer says, Max, I'm going to get the Barbie Vet for a group build.
Good luck. That'll go in the muscle car build. You know, if Jay Leno's Cobra can get stomped by an 80-year-old lady in a Tesla, then why not the Barbie Vet? Oh, gosh. Dear God, we're an hour and 40 into this already? I felt like we just started. We're having a good time, aren't we?
Yeah, I kind of felt that too.
Well, anyway, I think the Barbie Vet was a mistake, but I have to salute the guys for at least having the courage to go there. So kudos on them for that. I don't stand in judgment. And if I see one, I'm going to grab it. I'm telling you that right now. Now watch. You watch. 6 months from now, we're going to see that car on the shelf because of this video, and I won't get any credit.
Yeah, the marketing guy probably had a gun at the meeting.
You watch, they're going to do it at Aurora now.
Yeah.
But was it loaded?
Barbie Vet versus Godzilla.
Hey, well, I'm sorry. I already did Girls in Panzer versus Godzilla. I'm ahead of the curve on that one. I got that video out there if you want to see it.
You know what would be a good group build? Tank
What?
Girl kit.
What?
Tank Girl.
Oh, heck yeah. Girls in Panzer, Tank Girl, yeah. The other thing I was going to talk about was building models for other people.
Yeah.
Both of these are models. The DC-7 and the Gatto class submarine are both models that I built for co-workers' fathers. On the left, you have a gentleman. I built the USS Trigger, and I made a video about it, which is out on YouTube. That was his father was the commander of the Trigger, who was lost a month before the end of the war. The sub went down with all hands, apparently because no one in the American Navy knew the Japanese had improved their sonar. So Commander Knoll.
You pull the plug out again.
You're getting the sound.
No,
thing again.
no, it should be. I'm probably just moving too far away. Hold on. Can you hear me now?
I hear you.
I think it was just the angle of the microphone.
Just pretend they can hear you again.
Test 1 2 3. Test 1 2 3. Barbie Tiger Tank. William, behave. I like the idea, by the way. The pink. You've heard of the Pink Panther? He says a Barbie Tiger Tank. You've heard of the Pink Panther? How about the Pink Panzer? Ha ha ha.
I like the idea. I like Barbie in a tutu. Godzilla in a tutu.
Stop. Anyway.
Pink
So-
Panzer. Oh, that was bad.
I love it. On the left, we have the USS Trigger that was commanded by Commander Knoll. And unfortunately, the U.S. Navy intelligence did not know that the Japanese had mastered sonar, so the old techniques for avoiding Japanese sub-hunters was no longer successful, and we lost the USS Trigger a month before the end of the war, all hands, on Eternal Patrol. Well, in fact, the Navy even lied about where it went down because they didn't want to reveal that to the family or anyone else. But so I built the trigger for one of my coworkers whose grandfather was a commander, and that's his dad standing by it. And then on the right, one of my other coworkers, I built that DC-7. His father flew those things for years for Air Antilles. And I had to custom make the decals and everything. And that's the Rodin kit. Obviously, the submarine on the left is the big Revell kit, and the Rodin kit was the DC-7. And he said both of them said their dads just love it. And I love building kits for people like that. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have built a model for somebody. Steve, I know you have, right?
Yeah, I've done it for many people.
It really gives me a warm fuzzy to know that somebody, you're really giving somebody some joy, and that's not a small thing.
You know, how it usually starts is that somebody will see what you've done or come over or visit your home, and they look at it and they go, wow, I'd love to have a model of this. Would you do that for me? And you're, yeah, sure.
I gave Max an RC airplane.
Yep. And I built a DC-3 for another coworker. I don't have a picture of her with it, but her dad flew them, freight in them, and that's what I did with the big Eastern. I got the number to his I got his he didn't have the number of his airplane, so I got his date of birth and his initials and made that the end number. But
there you go.
That is kind of a pay it forward sort of thing when you can do that for people. And I just really enjoy being able to build a model that knowing that your model building brings somebody some joy. That's just a beautiful thing. And
the thing about building for somebody else is you got to make sure that you're on your game.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's got to be the best that there could be. It can't be sloppy. It can't have runs, fingerprints.
Yep, absolutely.
Bubbles in the decals. No, it's got to be like, store quality.
It's funny you mentioned that, Steve, because I put more effort into models I build for other people than the models I build for myself.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you did a pretty good job painting that SD-45.
And
Ken, do you know how many nights I worked on that thing trying to get it right?
You talked about it a lot.
Well, that was a learning experience for me. And I didn't expect the reaction of some of the paints against the plastic that caused some of the problems. Okay. For those who do not know, it was your grandfather worked for the Erie and Erie Lackawanna, correct?
Yes.
He worked for Lackawanna, and then when they merged the Erie Lackawanna.
No, Erie and then Erie Lackawanna.
Erie and then Erie Lackawanna. Okay. Ken gave me this big gray G scale, the big Locomotive, and he painted it, sure. And I had no idea. I thought it was going to be an easy thing. In fact, Ken, that's one of the first, I think you may be the first time I built a kit for someone else. Let us refer to it as a learning experience in making decals and working on something that's and I had to take this thing apart because I didn't want any oversprays or anything like that. And how can I put this? I was trying to experiment and develop techniques at Ken's expense.
You never told me that.
Now, bear in mind, I would only do that to a friend. It is what it is. And when I was done, I was like looking at it and going, he'll never notice.
Well, if you really want to know the truth, I was thinking, does he do his own models this bad?
If you'll pardon the pun, it was a train wreck.
Oh, God.
I thought being large...
I didn't want to say anything mean because you went to all this effort to work on it and paint it up for me. It did need some cleaning up in some places, but I was happy that you did it for me.
I thought being larger would be easier. Well, I thought being bigger would be easier, and being bigger just meant the blemishes showed more. Now, don't get me wrong. If you stand back 8 or 10 feet, it looks pretty good.
All the way back to Georgia.
The 50-50 kit. Like good for 50
It
50 miles an hour.
had curb appeal. It had curb appeal. Have you ever tried to stencil out Erie Lackawanna? You had how many letters are in that frickin' name?
Quite a few.
But I felt bad because when I tried to strip some of the paint off, some of the plastic came with it, so the fuel tanks wound up with it. And I was like, well, Ken, they rust and they sandblast them.
Yeah, well, there's some pieces missing, too.
They're probably still under the TARDIS 1 as we speak.
That's the authentic used look, Ken.
Yeah,
it turned out to be a lot more of a deal than I expected. And when I did tape everything off and spray it and try to do it, with masking, and then peel the tape off, I'm like, how is that crooked? I mean, I took measurements. I did everything. But the bigger the model, that's why I love 1/48 scale. It's just the right scale. Not too big, not too small. That G scale, which is, what is G, 1/32 scale?
That particular was a 1/28.
1/28. I was like, good God, this is so much harder than it looks. If I did it again today, I would airbrush everything. And what I would do is negatives. I would shoot the whole thing in a primer, then shoot the whole thing in the base color, tape that off, then the next color, tape that off, then the next color, where you're peeling the tape off and the color underneath shows. And yes, I would find a way to stencil every freaking letter in Erie-Lackawanna. And I would give myself 3 months to do it.
And there's also that phenomena with the smaller model gets the color changes, even though it's the exact same color.
I've heard some counter arguments to that. Some people say that's not really the case. I don't know. Yeah, you're supposed to make it lighter as it gets smaller, but some people say no, keep it the same color. I've heard arguments on both sides. But anyway, these two models turned out really well. I'm thrilled that the gentlemen enjoy them. The idea that you can bring a little joy to somebody's life through model building. And Ken, I want you to know, you took it on the chin, so these gentlemen didn't have to. And it's a price I'm willing to pay.
What a sacrifice, Ken.
I just sent the couple pictures that I took of it. I sent them to Steve, but I sent them to you too. This is
all right. Let me see if I can go get one and put it up here so people can laugh at me. That's fine.
Actually, this side turned out pretty good. I didn't take a picture of the other side.
Did you email it to me?
No, I texted it to you.
Oh, you should email it to me. It's a lot easier to get. Yeah, email it to me, and it'll be easier to put up here, and you guys can see my shame. My shame! Do you still have that locomotive?
Oh, heck yeah. It's one of my favorites.
Oh.
Is that the one that
you made me feel good all of a sudden?
I kind of look at it and go, how could you do this to me, Max?
Well, Ken, I only do that to my friends.
Only do it to friends. Okay, that makes sense. All right.
So I have a topic to discuss.
Discuss away.
Today I went to an IPMS model show at the Simone Museum in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And as I perused the tables with some really nice stuff, there was a 1/8 scale kit of a current Camaro Pro Stocker with removable doors, removable roof, full detail frame. And I'm looking at this thing and I'm going, nobody makes this kit. So during the day, I sourced out the fella who made the kit. He 3D printed it.
Ooh.
It was spectacular. I think I might have sent you a picture of it earlier in the day from the show. As we chatted and we talked about it, and he was explaining to me how he did it, he brought me over to a table he was sitting at and opened up a plastic container of a 67 Camaro that he's doing, which is going to be like a pro street with a complete ladder frame and supports and everything, and showed it to, I was stunned. And he did it with a 3D printer. The one that he did that was on the table, which was painted and detailed, he said it took him 2 years to build it, but it was spectacular. So, you know, there's people out there that are starting to embrace the 3D printing, you know, challenge, and they're coming up with some great stuff.
Tommy Anderson just sent me some stuff on 3D printers, and I have to agree. In fact, Tommy, I literally just sent you in real time a response, but you can do almost anything with 3D printing now. It's really changing the game. Ken, did you email me that stuff yet?
I'm doing it right now.
Come on, snap to, boy. Hop. Got a schedule to keep. Guys, we're going to go a little bit long here tonight, if you don't mind. The Mrs. Max's Models gave me permission to go as long as I wanted to, so since we have one or two things left to cover. I was afraid I didn't have enough material, but, you know, now it looks like we're going to actually have plenty plus some.
Would you lose the towel for the door?
No, the flag's up there.
Oh, okay.
Ha! I'm not going through that again. And all that implies. The greatest phrase from the Iron Giant besides Superman and all that implies, Hogarth. I'm just sitting here waiting for Ken's email to populate.
What?
I'm waiting for your email to populate.
In that picture.
What's that?
I'm waiting for the picture of the Erie Lackawanna train wreck. Well, while we're on that, I'll get to the next thing.
For some reason, it's saying that it can't.
Well,
do some pictures, but I'll get it.
The next thing I wanted to talk about was one of my favorite little movie clips is when Charlton Heston at the beginning of the Planet of the Apes gives that speech, and while he's in the spaceship about, you know, his man still make war on his brother, blah blah blah. You know, out here near the speed of light, you know, the universe is vast. It squashes a man's ego. I love that little speech. Well, I grabbed a screen grab of the cockpit of their spacecraft, and I was thinking, you know, that would make a good little kit. Because I always felt that the inside of the spaceship for that the Planet of the Apes was actually a pretty cool set. And surely, no doubt, they made it on the cheap and everything. No reason not to. But I just thought it had the right look. And I was thinking, you know, that would make an interesting kit for someone to make. You probably wouldn't need any rights or not, you know, be cheap if you did. But it would also be cool if you just went ahead and made the whole damn thing in 1/32 scale or 1/24 scale, where you could have the fully detailed cockpit and the outside shell of the ship. Speaking for myself, I think it was great set design. And, of course, Planet of the Apes is a classic sci-fi movie. But that was just one of those things I was like, you know, that wouldn't even be that hard to scratch build, actually, if somebody was really to get aggressive about it. There's not that much detail to it. But speaking for myself, I just thought that was a great piece of Hollywood set, set dressing and set building, and it would make a good kit.
Looks like the crew compartment on a 747 SP to China.
Kind of does, doesn't it? Not wrong on that part.
Yeah, for somebody who's going to be, the crew is going to be sleeping 95% of the trip. They sure got an awful lot of room in there.
Yeah.
Well, think about it, Ken. When they're not sleeping, all four of them, except for the bathroom and the galley, they're pretty much stuck in that area. So, little elbow room, yeah. I gotta love a spacecraft ashtrays. Yeah, I like smoking the cigar. He just sets it down. What? No ashtray? I mean, that movie is so 1960s. And they called it ENSA, not NASA. You know, I was like, okay, nice dodge, guys. I am not getting it, Ken. I guess we don't get to see it tonight.
I'm almost there. Patience.
Stay on target. Almost there. Stay on target. Loosen up!
I sent you the 3D printed car. Your email.
I'm looking at the email. Nothing coming up so far, but it takes time, even in this instant gratification society.
Well, here in Florida, DeSantis probably doesn't let through too much stuff anymore.
Ha ha.
He thinks it's woke Disney stuff coming across.
That'll be President DeSantis in a couple of years. Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I betray something?
Don't you be bad mouthing our DeSantis.
You know, they never ask people down here in Florida what they think of the governor because they have a narrative
They're scared.
Okay, we stay away from politics here. Long live rock.
Because they don't care because it came from somebody else to escape the horrible gargoyles they have in the states they came from as governors.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't want to get political on this channel. That's not what we do. We're a kit model channel, but I will tell you right now, a lot of the folks who come here from other places, and they are welcomed, they may say one thing, but when they get in that booth by themselves to vote, you know, no witnesses. Just saying. They can say what they want. They'll vote how they vote.
Yes, Rob Addis just summed up the whole movie in one sentence.
What's that?
Lieutenant Stewart was hot before she got cold.
Oh, that's not right.
That's what happened.
Well, guys, nothing's populating in the old email here.
It's coming.
Have you
I had
seen
to
it?
log back into my email. It logged me out.
That's what you get for having that intense threat level 5 security.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm drinking water at this point. Have to hydrate.
Ken, what kind of phone do you have?
Android.
I'm sorry. I believe that's called a droid. Okie dokie.
Here we go.
You there now, Ken?
Damn close.
The people are waiting. It's 9 o'clock, and people want to know. They want to see the great Erie Lackawanna train wreck.
Stretch it out here.
You didn't get the car email?
Stretch it like melted styrene.
Yeah, Steve just asked you if you got his car.
Nope. I don't have anything from either one of you.
Wow. Well, I haven't said anything yet, so I got a good excuse.
Sure you got the computer turned on?
Got the plugged in.
Come on, guys. The universe awaits.
Just talk. You're good at that.
It is my superpower. I'm going to log out of the email and log back in.
Fill the void.
So,
It's coming.
to recap tonight's show, though, and we've had a lot of fun. Pink Barbie. I'm still waiting to hear from TD on that, his opinion. I don't blame the guys. You know, they're trying to do. They were really getting desperate in the around 83, 84. They were really getting desperate, and
That looks like the mold from his California Corvette kit.
yeah, it may have been. It looks just like it, so it very well may have been. And that's got to pinch a little, you know. I mean, one day you're designing cars and the plate, you design what?
Yeah, especially since they're using his car and he's not getting paid a royalty for it.
Not a bit. But, you know, one day you're designing, you know, the look of the future in automobiles and the playpen at GM, and the next thing you know, people are pimping out your car in pink. That's got to sting a little. Ken, I still don't have anything. What's your status?
It's sent.
Waiting.
I'll probably get there sooner.
Emails.
It'll probably get there faster
There-
than Steve's because I'm closer.
Oh, I love this. Unread. Ken.
yeah,
okay,
okay,
ST45.
that works.
There it is. You sent it sideways.
Oh, please, come on.
Okay, copy image, paste, rotate, right 90 degrees. Really? Oh, there we go. Crop, file, save as, Livestream 91, train. Okay, guys, here's the butcher job. Here's the butcher job I did on Ken's Locomotive. Hold on. Okay.
This is the good side.
Image.
Do you have the bad side?
Oh, it definitely has a bad side.
I hadn't taken a picture of that.
Perhaps that's best.
All right, guys, here you go. There it is.
Good if I was tired of waiting.
This is the butcher job I did on Ken's Locomotive SD45. SD stands for Special Duty?
Yes.
And let's see if
Basically, it just means it's got 6-wheel tracks.
Yeah, it has a 6-wheel tracks. Okay. Okay. Copy.
I put a ruler in there so it kind of gives you an idea how big this thing is.
Oops. Rotate
I've seen
left.
worse.
File, save.
Yeah.
It also weighs 15 pounds.
File, save as, train 2.
The handrails are underneath. I never put them on because
Not my fault.
if you want to keep it in the box,
Can't put
it's
the
going to
handrails
squish.
on.
Yeah, you can't put the handrails, squish them.
Whose is it? MHT's? Or MP?
No, no, it's made by Aristocraft. They're not in business anymore.
So it's a
From no, it's G scale.
Okay, Ken, now they can see my humiliation and shame up close and personal. I put in the zoom
128
in.
scale.
Okay.
This is the
It's made
locomotive
by-
that I made for Ken.
And Aristocraft is was owned by Polk's Hobbies.
Right. Yep, that was their import brand.
Where's the drunk mayor figure? There, Ken. They can
by
see.
hand?
They can see it all now.
Did you paint those letters by hand?
No,
Almost.
that was a decal that I had to touch up with hand paint.
It's like Helen Keller did it.
Thank you, Steve.
Oh, that was cruel.
Yeah.
You'll also notice that the yellow lines aren't quite of equal thickness.
Well, you know.
They're
They
supposed to be a
mock
lot
me.
thinner.
They do not appreciate my artistic genius.
After 100 pictures I gave you, and this is what I got.
I am flipping you a bird with the other hand. But
And you have to lower your expectations.
let me explain what I did wrong. I painted it gray, then taped off the area, then shot it in yellow, then taped off the edges and shot and did everything else you see here shot. So the magenta, the maroon was last. What I should have done was laid the maroon first, put a piece of tape across, which would have guaranteed an equal size, right? Then trimmed out the letters, shot the yellow, then put a piece of tape down the bottom and down the top, which would have guaranteed equidistant, right? A perfect trim, and taped over the seam, then shot it in gray, and then peeled everything off as a negative, and it all would have been in balance, but I did it the other way around. So let that be a lesson to you.
Or you could have had some adult beverage before you did it.
No, that does not enhance a straight line. Trust me. But it was a learning experience, Ken. And because of the price you paid, other people have nice models.
And there you go, Ken. It was worth the sacrifice.
And it's a price they're willing to pay.
Uh-huh. Like I said, this is the good side.
It really, really is. The other side's even more embarrassing.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
So, hey, Blue Troopers, what's on the bench?
I got what I paid for.
Yeah, because you paid 10 times what I asked, which was nothing.
I supplied the paint, too.
Oh, yeah. Such an investment. Oh, what's a savings? Oh,
Hey,
come on. You guys know that movie.
Model.
You have to know that reference. Oh, what's a savings?
No, don't know that one.
Oh, come on, Ken. Now you're just embarrassing yourself.
Okay.
Galaxy Quest, when they're opening the shopping center. Oh, what a savings.
Okay. That was a little bit too subtle for me.
Oh, geez. I guess gave you too much credit, just like you did when you gave me your train. Oh, well.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I've been waiting. I teed you up for that one. Oh, I had to go a long way, but 'twas worth it. Oh, my faithful minions.
You feel better now.
I do. Now I have one more picture to add so that you can get your last digs in. I'm going to show the other side.
He's had way too much cough medicine.
No, I have not. All right, Ken, here's the other side. And like he said, it's bad. It is the other side, isn't it?
No, all three of those were from the same side.
You wasted an opportunity to humiliate me with the other side, and you gave me two pictures of the same side. Ken, I don't think you understand.
More pictures.
Ken, I don't think you understand how vengeance works. Well, anyway.
You see right there in that picture. You see how even the stripes are?
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
It's like a roller coaster at King's Dominion.
Or Dorney Park.
And you'll also notice the rough finish on the fuel tank at the bottom.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
You know what that's from?
That's from me trying to strip the paint off.
Yeah, Krylon paint that doesn't exactly work with the paint underneath of it.
Yes, for shame. I tried to go HPI guy, and instead I got the Maytag washer repairman. Wow. That joke just did not work. Anyway, guys, that's it for tonight. I hope everybody's had a great time. I hope it took a couple hours out of your life and gave you a little bit of humor in return. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I especially want to thank Paul down in New Zealand for all the stuff he sent me, a lot of which I haven't even gotten around to collating yet. I want to thank Bill and Mr. Perez and just so many others. All you guys have been sending me stuff. Great stuff. And I want to thank Steve and Ken for coming out to join us tonight. Guys, I hope you had a good time. Took a few hours away from what's going on in the world just to kind of sit back and talk about models. And to Barry and Trey and Fran and, gosh, just all you guys. I just want to say thanks for coming out to join us tonight. I hope you had a good time. We'll talk at you later. And as always, model on. Guys, say goodnight.
Good night, guys.
Good night, guys.
Later on.
I can't believe what I just saw. It made me drop a slackened jaw. A goal beyond my reach, or so it seemed. An aspiration I had only dreamed. A vision I foresaw when I was a kid. Yes, I did. I'm in fine scale modeler. I gave myself a clapping hand. Now I can die a happy man. After making only the website, I finally got every detail right. When the paint and the glue put up their usual fight, I kept it tight and got in fine scale modeling. workshop light I saw the airbrush pattern start to sprawl. The paint, it was not adhering. The primer, it had been over thin. And the finish must be corrected right away for me to say I got in fine scale modeler. The tools I use are getting old. I know that better stuff is sold, but I'm building on a budget here. I can't be buying all that fancy gear. Still my work got better over time, and finally I'm featured in fine scale modeler. And the premium I paid for the little kit I made, it was worth the extra shipping fees. The online auction brought me to my knees. The email said you won this item 'cause you raised your bid just in time. Well, now it's mine, displayed in fine scale modeler.
Just bought some kits at a clearance sale, a tank and a Mac flatbed, and started home from the hobby shop back to my tiny shed. Up late last night detailing, man, the nipper's well cared for. 5 hours had passed and I told my babe just a half hour more, a half hour more. The wife had started talking tough, the tiny girl is boss. She insists I acknowledge her point of view. I know now that I've lost, I know now that I've lost. The sheds are filled with a score of kits unfinished for a while. The jolly green dish to cut to, some camel's hair and my knife. The DC-10, there's a Saturn V and Messerschmitt in the unfinished pile. So this is a tale of a model kit unbuilt for a long, long time. I'm gonna have to let it sit, I barely got it primed. I'll first research the color scheme and do my very best to make it concours accurate, an obsession and a quest. Nose cone, strobe lights, tail rotor spar, and getting up at dawn. The sand runs through the hourglass and modeling time is gone. So make some modeling time each day, it's sure to make you smile. And finish all your model kits in your unfinished pile.
I'm a thud pilot. I love my plane. It is my body, I am its brain. My thunder chief loves me, and I love her too. But I get the creeps with only one seat and one engine too. She's faster than lightning, it says on her dials. To get a thud airborne takes only 2 miles. She's packed with transistors, black boxes, diodes. But stay alert, 'cause you might get hurt when she explodes. She totes more bombs than a B-17. My F-105 has a gun and she's mean. But there is one thing that curdles my blood. It's lonesome up there, alone in the air in my single-seat thud. I love my thud, and she loves me too. But she soaks up flack like a magnet can do. If I get my 100 and I'm still alive, have no grief. Goodbye, Thunder Chief, my F-105.
I can't believe what I just saw. It made me drop a slackened jaw. A goal beyond my reach, or so it seemed. An aspiration I had only dreamed. A vision I foresaw when I was a kid. Yes, I did. I'm in fine scale modeler. I gave myself a clapping hand. Now I can die a happy man. After making only the website, I finally got every detail right. When the paint and the glue put up their usual fight, I kept it tight and got in fine scale modeler. And in the workshop light I saw the airbrush pattern start to sprawl. The paint, it was not adhering. The primer, it had been over thin. And the finish must be corrected right away for me to say I got in fine scale modeler. The tools I use are getting old. I know that better stuff is sold, but I'm building on a budget here. I can't be buying all that fancy gear. Still my work got better over time, and finally I'm featured in fine scale modeler. And the premium I paid for the little kit I made, it was worth the extra shipping fees. The online auction brought me to my knees. The email said you won this item 'cause you raised your bid just in time. Well, now it's mine, displayed in fine scale modeler.
Just bought some kits at a clearance sale, a tank and a Mac flatbed, and started home from the hobby shop back to my tiny shed. Up late last night detailing, man, the nipper's well cared for. 5 hours had passed and I told my babe just a half hour more, a half hour more. The wife had started talking tough, the tiny girl is boss. She insists I acknowledge her point of view. I know now that I've lost, I know now that I've lost. The sheds are filled with a score of kits unfinished for a while. The jolly green dish to cut to, some camel's hair and my knife. The DC-10, there's a Saturn V and Messerschmitt in the unfinished pile. So this is a tale of a model kit unbuilt for a long, long time. I'm gonna have to let it sit, I barely got it primed. I'll first research the color scheme and do my very best to make it concours accurate, an obsession and a quest. Nose cone, strobe lights, tail rotor spar, and getting up at dawn. The sand runs through the hourglass and modeling time is gone. So make some modeling time each day, it's sure to make you smile, and finish all your model kits in your unfinished pile.
I'm a thud pilot, I love my plane. It is my body, I am its brain. My Thunder Chief loves me, and I love her too. But I get the creeps with only one seat and one engine too. She's faster than lightning, it says on her dials. To get a thud airborne takes only 2 miles. She's packed with transistors, black boxes, diodes. But stay alert, because you might get hurt when she explodes. She totes more bombs than a B-17. My F-105 has a gun and she's mean. But there is one thing that curdles my blood. It's lonesome up there, alone in the air, in my single-seat thud. I love my thud, and she loves me too. But she soaks up flak like a magnet can do. If I get my 100 and I'm still alive, I'll have no grief. Goodbye, Thunder Chief, my F-105.